Okay, selamat pagi semua. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi and a very good morning to everybody. How are you? Tak ada yang nak jawab ke? Apa khabar semua pagi ni? Sihat ke?
Morning, Doktor.
Hai doktor.
Okay, semua sihat ya?
Sihat,
Alhamdulillah.
Doktor.
Alright, kita baru ada 21 orang, tapi tak apa, kita mulakan lah ya. Bagi mereka yang dah join awal, thank you so much. Sekejap ya, saya share my notes dulu. Hmm. Hmm. Okay, ada ya, the notes. So today, we are going to discuss on segmental reporting. Ada ya kelas notes ini? Nampak ya dekat your screen? Segmental
Ada
reporting.
doktor.
Alright. Okay. So this week we are going to discuss on segmental reporting. That is the accounting treatment for how to report on a segment, business segment or geographical segment, in a business, in a company. So discussions, the accounting treatment for segmental reporting is being discussed. The guideline is under MFRS 8, MFRS 8. So we look at what is the objective of MFRS 8, MFRS 8. So the objective of MFRS 8 is to present information of the entity of the company based on business and based on geographical location. Okay, so the discussion on this standard is basically discussing on the segment of the business, the segment of an organization. So sometimes we have organizations that do a variety of business in different location. Okay, so this standard discuss in to discuss how the information in financial statement to be represent to be disclosed by line of business and or geographical area, geographical segment. Okay, so the purpose of segment reporting is to enable an entity financial statement to be fully understand the past performance. Okay, so that it easier. So if the entity present their financial informations based on segment, so it's easily for the business to the entity to fully understand their past performance, and then to assess the entity risk and returns, and to make full decisions about the whole entity. Okay. All right. So we are looking on what is actually the segment. So we have two types of segment. That is business segment and also geographical segment. Okay, kita ada dua segment ni, business segment and also geographical segment. So for business segment, for example, for Samsung produce a variety of product. For example, Samsung produce an handphone. Samsung also produce notebook, okay, or computer, and Samsung also produce home appliances, right? Untuk peralatan rumah kan, Samsung, so a variety of product that Samsung produce. So Samsung have to disclose the informations of this segment. Okay, so for business segment, what's the definitions for business segment is that a component of entity that provide single product or service or a group of related product or service. Okay, provides a single product, meaning that if the company, the entity product one single product or one single service, or maybe the entity can also product a group of related product or services. So meaning that a group of related product or services is mean that, for example, Samsung produce handphone and also computers. So handphone and computer can be grouped together as a one related product. Okay, produk yang hampir sama lah. Dia tak boleh macam Samsung, dia tak boleh apa tak boleh aggregate product, for example, untuk home appliances and handphone as one product. Dia kena aggregate those product as a similar product. Okay, a group of related product yang hampir sama lah. Okay, provide a single product or service or a group of related product or service. And then must be subject to risk and returns that are different from those of other business segment. For example, Samsung productions of handphone and computers of Samsung must be similar compared to the productions of home appliances of Samsung. So dia punya risiko dia berbeza kan, returns and risk and returns for this product is different. Home appliances and also notebook and handphone. Okay, next. Factors that should be considered in determining whether products or services are related include the nature of the product or services. Okay, the characteristic of product or services. For example, the handphone and computer can be aggregate together because the nature of the product is quite similar. Dia adalah technological product. And then the nature of production process, how the product is being, the process of the product. Okay, is it similar? Okay, and then the type of class of customer for the product and services. So this one, the type of class of customer, for example, we have, for example, handphone, the range of price of the handphone, for example, Samsung produce a handphone that the range of price is for example, from 400 ringgit until 5,000. Okay, and Samsung also can produce an handphone for luxury customer that cost 20,000 and above. Okay, ada handphone that cost 20,000 and above. This is for different type of customer lah, luxury customer. So biasanya yang average customer dia membeli, biasanya dia untuk average customer dia akan keluarkan lah handphone yang harganya maybe from 400 until 5,000. Okay, but for luxury customer, Samsung produce an handphone that cost 20,000 and above. Similar to home appliances, for example, for refrigerator, okay, untuk peti ais tu, there are refrigerator that cost 10,000 and above. Okay, tapi kalau untuk average customer, biasa mereka beli refrigerator yang harga maybe from 1,000 to 5,000 lah. Okay, so biasanya about 4,000 refrigerator yang untuk 2 pintu tu kan yang besar tu about 5,000. But for luxury customer, Samsung produce refrigerator that maybe the cost is 10,000 and above. Yang tu adalah yang memang special made for that customer. Okay, and then the method used to distribute the product and services, how? What is the method to distribute the product? Okay, is it using online or is it the entity must have shop? Okay, and then the nature of regulatory environment, for example, banking, insurance, or public utilities. Okay, so these are factors that the entity should consider whether the product or service are related. Okay, can be related together. Okay, so next we go to the second types of segment, that is the geographical segment. For example, I state here is European market. So we have European market, you have Asian market, and then we have maybe Gulf country market. Yeah. So basically, how to determine the market is, so there are several factors lah. Okay, so what is geographical segment? Geographical segment is a component of entity, product or service within a particular economic environment. So if they are located in a particular economic environment, the similar environment, so they can be as a one geographical segment. Okay, can be related as one geographical segment. And then must subject to risk and return that are different from those of components operating in the economic environment. Okay, that is definitions for geographical segment. Yeah. Okay, factors that should be considered in identifying geographical segment include similarity of economic and political conditions. So the economic of the entity must be similar. Okay, when they located in the same geographical area. Okay, for example, Malaysia, okay, Indonesia, Singapore, Vietnam. So they are within the economic and political condition, similar political conditions in Asia. Okay, and then so they can be considered located in the similar geographical segment. Okay, that is Asia. Okay, and then relationship between operations in different geographical area, and then proximity of operation. Okay, so special risks associated with operations in a particular area. Okay, so the risk and return when the entity located in the particular area is similar, yeah? And then exchange control regulations and the underlying currency risk. Okay. Okay, so next is a reportable segment. So what is a reportable segment? So we have a business and geographical segment, yeah. So in these two segments, we have to identify the entity have to identify which segment is their reportable segment. Okay, within these two segment, yeah, business and geographical segment. Yeah. So what is reportable segment? A reportable segment is a business segment and geographical segment identified to disclose their segment information. Only reportable segment need to disclose their segment information. Okay, so ada dua, we have business and geographical segment. So if the company, if the entity identify that they have business segment, so within this their business segment, okay, maybe they have 4 or 5 business segment, yeah. So within these 4 or 5 business segment, which segment need to be reportable? Bukan semua segment yang boleh report. Only segment that comply with several factors that need to be reportable. Yeah, so they have to identify which segment is their reportable segment, because only reportable segment need to disclose their segment information. Okay, so how to determine reporting segment? Yeah. So they have to identify business and geographical segment. So the first step is to identify their business and geographical segment. Okay, and then an entity must look to its organizational structure and internal reporting system to identify reportable segment, meaning that they have to look back at their factors, factors to consider within their segment is a business or geographical segment. Yeah? Okay, so in fact, the segmentation used for internal report for the board should be the same for external report. So only if internal segment are not along either product or service or geographical line is further disaggregation appropriate. Okay. Okay. So after they have identified their business and geographical segment, so they have to the entity need to identify which segment is a primary and which segment is a secondary segment. Okay, so why? Because primary segment need to disclose more compared to secondary segment. Okay, so secondary segment need to disclose less information, okay, compared to primary. Yeah? So to decide which is primary, the entity should see whether business or geographical factors most affect the risk and return. Meaning that the primary segment risk and return is more risk for primary and segment. The risk and return for the primary segment is more compared to secondary segment. Okay, and then the primary segment need to disclose more compared to secondary segment. Yeah? So this be helped by looking at entities' internal organization and management structure and its system of internal reporting to senior management. So for most entities, one basis of segmentation is primary, okay, and the other is secondary. So which mean that for secondary segment, the disclosure for secondary segment is less disclosure required for secondary segment. Okay. So basically, to identify which segment is primary and which segment is secondary, the first thing that we have to look is that which segment most affect the risk and return, and which segment need to disclose more. Okay. Then after we have identified our reportable segment, so what the entity have to identify is to know which segment is the operating segment. Okay. So what's the meaning? What is the definitions for operating segment? Is that operating segment earns revenue and incurs expenses from a business activity. So so for example, an entity have 5 segment, but from 5 segment, only 3 segment is a reportable segment. Okay, so from these three reportable segment, so the entity must identify which reportable segment is an operating segment. Okay, so definition for operating segment is that the segment must earn revenue and incur expenses from a business activity. Okay, and then the segment must regularly reviewed by the chief decision maker when handling out resources and has separate financial info available. So meaning that operating segment must have separate financial info available. Yeah? Okay, so these are three characteristic to define the segment as an operating segment. Yeah, so must earn revenue and incur expenses. And then the segment must regularly reviewed by the chief decision maker, and the segment must have separate financial info available. Okay. All right. So look at this example illustration, identification of CODM. CODM is chief operating decision maker. So assume that a public entity has a president, a chief executive office, and a chief operating officer, and that these positions are held by different individuals. So assume that all three of these individuals serve on management committee, which exists to make operating decisions related to the operating segment of the entity, and that each has an equal vote in decisions made by the committee. Okay, so from this example, we have a public entity. So the public entity has a president, a chief executive office, and a chief operating officer, and that all of these positions are held by different individuals. And then these three individuals serve on management committee, and these three individuals must make, okay, exist to make operating decisions related to operating segment of the entity. So from these illustrations, identify who is CODM. CODM is Chief Operating Decision Maker, the person that make decision to the entity. Okay, so because in this example, we have three individual, and these three individual post different positions, yeah? And all of these three individuals serve on management committee. So meaning that these three individuals make decisions to the entity. So because of these three individuals serve on the management committee and make decisions to the for the entity. So these three individual is the CODM. Okay, so in this case, the CODM would be the management committee, because the committee, which is evenly controlled by its members, make the operating decisions rather than any individual executive. But CODM also can be only one person, not necessarily must be a committee. So CODM dia boleh jadi an individual, dan juga boleh jadi a committee. The key words dekat sini adalah CODM must make decisions to the entity. If one individual make decisions for the entity, so that individual is a CODM. Okay, but if more than one individual, there are a committee, so that committee is a CODM, because they have to make meeting, and then only that they can make decisions for the company. Okay. So to this point, to this slide, any question from the class? Ada soalan tak kelas? Is it okay? Boleh ya? The introductions until the CODM. Okay, so I proceed. Okay, so next, we have to identify, the entity needs to identify, because some of the companies, some of the entity have not only one segment, but they have many segment. Under business segment or geographical segment, they have more segment, more than one segment. Yeah, so they need to aggregate segment. Okay, so operating segment can be aggregated together only if they have similar economic and characteristics, such as the segment must have similar product or service. Okay, the entity must have similar production process, similar sort of customer, similar distribution methods, and similar regulations. So if the entity, the segment comply all these 4 to 5 characteristics, so the segment can be aggregate. Okay, dia boleh di-aggregatekan together lah, jadi as one segment. Okay, if the segment have similar economic characteristics, so they have to comply all these 5 characteristic ya, maybe 4 to 5. Tak boleh hanya 3 sahaja, but they have to comply majority of these all characteristic. Okay, if they have similar characteristic, so then the segment can be aggregate. Okay, so next we go to the quantitative steps, quantitative treatment for the segment. Okay, so we call here is that quantitative threshold to identify which segment need to report. Okay, their segment, yeah. So for segment, we have 3 tests, to test whether the segment need to report their segment, yeah. So the first test is profit test. Okay. The second test is asset test, and the third test is internal and external revenue test. Okay. So any segment which meet this threshold must be reported. Okay. So any segment yang memenuhi 3 test ni kena dilaporkanlah, kena report their financial, need to disclose their financial information. So we call this test is quantitative threshold. So we have 3 tests here. So profit test, asset test, and internal and external revenue test. Okay. So we look at what is profit test, asset test, and internal external revenue test. Yeah. So profit test is profit is 10% or more of all profitable segment. For profit test, yeah, profit is 10% or more of all reportable segment. Okay, and then for asset test, asset are 10% or more of the total asset of all operating segment. So meaning that the threshold is that 10%. Yeah? And then for internal and internal external revenue test is that internal and external revenue is 10% or more of total revenue in operating segment. Okay. Okay, and then after we have done, we have test for the segment for quantitative threshold test. Yeah, these 3 tests. Next step is that we have to test for 75% constraint. Okay, so if the total external revenue of the operating segment reported on is less than 75% of total revenue of the company, then additional operating segment result, those not meeting the quantitative threshold are reported upon until the 75% is met. So this here means that for 75% constraint test, we only have to take the external revenue. Okay, hanya ambil external revenue sahaja of the operating segment, and then we have to do this test, 75% constraint test. If we get less than 75%, so this test must get at least 75% and more. Sekiranya dapat kurang daripada 75%, so we have to take additional operating segment until the entity get 75%. Okay, so after, if the entity gets 70% constraint, so meaning that the entity is a reportable segment. Okay, so we look at the example. So here we have segment A, B, C, D, E, and then segment F is the industry. Okay, so we have external revenue, internal revenue, we have profit informations, and also we have asset information. Yeah. Okay, external revenue, we have internal revenue, we have profit informations, and also asset. So instructions is that which of the segment A to E should be reported upon. So why the questions need you to identify segment A to E, because F is the industry. Yeah? Okay, they have to compare with the industry. So which of the segment A and until E should be reported upon. So we have to, so the first test will be quantitative threshold test. Okay, so under quantitative threshold test, we have to do 3 tests. That is profit test, asset test, and also revenue test. Okay, so we look at first we do the external, the revenue test. Yeah, so we know that entity A external revenue is 220, and then internal revenue is 60. Okay, and then the industry is 710. Okay, 710 and 90. Okay, the revenue, the amount of revenue of the industry is 710 and 90. Yes, and 90. So how to do the test is that we just total up the revenue. Okay, because the revenue test is we have to take the external revenue and internal revenue both. Okay, so 220 plus 60, so we get 280 divide by the industry, the total industry, that is 710 plus 90, that is 90. So 280 divided by 700 by 800. Okay, so times dengan 100%, so we get 35%. Okay, so for revenue test, then we need to do for segment B, C, D, and E. Okay, for segment B, so 300 plus 15, so we get 315 divided by 800 times with 100%. Okay, so segment B revenue test is 39%. Okay, and then segment C, 75 divided by 800 times with 100%. So segment C 9%, segment D 7.5%, and segment E is 9%. Okay, so for a revenue test, the quantitative threshold is that revenue test must the segment must has 10% and more. Okay, 10% and more. So segment A get 35%. So segment A pass the test. Okay, segment B get 39%. So that segment B is more than 10%. So segment B juga pass the test. And then segment C less than 10% kan? Segment C, segment D and E. So segment C, D and E less than 10%. So they fail revenue test. Okay, and then we look at the profit test. So profit test is 60 divided by 133 times with 100%. So we get so profit test. Oh no, sorry. So this one, because segment D is loss, not profit. So because they are this segment, okay, this business segment is they are under one entity. So when one segment get loss from their operations, so the industry must absorb the loss to the industry. So 133 plus with 11 will be 144. Okay, so for profit test, 60 divided by 144. So for segment A, 42%. Okay, and then segment B is 50 divided by 144. Okay, so segment B get 35%. Okay, and then for segment C, 14%. Segment D, because segment D loss, they not get profit, but they so loss, there are no profit for segment D, and segment E 9%. Okay, so segment A test pass the test because more than profit test for segment A is 42%, so more than 10%. Similar to segment B, pass the test. Segment C 14%, also more than 10%, and segment D and E fail the test. Okay, segment D memang cannot calculate it because dia loss. So dia memang tak ada profit langsung lah. Okay, but segment E fail the test 9%. Okay, so next we look at the asset So asset 5,000 divided by 10,000. So we get 50% for segment A, segment B, 4,000 divided by 10,000. So 40%, so pass. Segment C get 3%, so less than 10%. Segment D get 3%, so fail. Segment E also fail. Okay. So untuk for asset test, segment A and B pass the test Untuk profit test, segment A, B and C pass the test. And for revenue test, segment A and B pass the test. Okay. So from this segment from this calculation from these three tests, profit test, asset test and revenue test, so which segment need to be reported? Okay, so at least the entity pass one test. Okay, untuk mereka kena report. At least satu test saja pass, mereka dah boleh report dah. Okay, we look at segment A. So segment A pass revenue test, segment A also pass profit test, dan juga segment A juga pass asset test. So meaning that segment A need to be reported because they pass all the tests. And then we look at segment B. Segment B pass revenue test, segment B also pass profit test, and segment B also pass asset test. So segment B need to be reported because they pass all the tests. Segment C, dia fail revenue test. Segment C pass profit test, and segment C fail asset test. So is it segment C need to be reported? Class? Agaknya segment C need to be reported tak? Dia pass only profit test. Agaknya dia kena report tak? Yes, segment C need to be reported because at least satu sahaja pun dah cukup untuk segment to be reported. So because segment C pass profit test kan, at least one. So segment C juga need to be reported, although that segment C dia fail revenue test dan juga asset test. Okay, segment D fail all the tests. Okay, and segment E also fail all the tests. So segment D and E is a not reportable segment. Okay, so this is how we identify the entity identify reportable segment. So which segment is a reportable segment? Okay, so from this example, segment A, B, and C is a reportable segment. Okay, so we have already do the three tests. That is the quantitative threshold test. We have the three tests. Next, the next procedure is that we have to do 70% Okay. Dia habis dekat sini kita kena buat pula industry, okay, and 10. Okay, times with 100%, so we get 84%. So pass. So no more segment needed. Okay, this is the second test, that is external revenue test. Only take external revenue sahaja. Okay, divide by the industry external revenue. Must be kena melebihi 70%, 70% or more. Sekiranya more, okay, 70% and more, so meaning that the reportable segment, the three reportable segment pass. Okay, they pass. The segment is pass. So meaning that these three segment need to be reportable, yeah. So no more segment needed. Sekiranya, but if the external revenue test get, for example, 74%. Dapat 74%. So dia tak pass tau, constraint test 70%. So sekiranya mereka tak pass the external revenue test, meaning that apa yang kena buat adalah we have to take additional revenue, additional segment. Kita kena ambil 60 ataupun 70. Which one? Ambil lah sehingga capai 75% and more. Okay. Okay. So this one, if segment do not meet the criteria for classification as a separate segment, so if a segment does not meet the same threshold criteria, it can be designed as a reportable segment despite size. It can be combined with other similar segment that are also below the threshold of significance for the purpose of meeting the 10% test, or it is included as an all other segment. Okay, so this one, if for this one, sekiranya yang ni, segmen A, B and C kan dia tak capai 75% and more, jadi kita kena ambil more segment needed. Okay, more segment needed. Okay, jadi kita kena mulakan balik dengan proses yang asal, meaning that kita kena combine other segment. Okay, that below than 10%, okay, then add up sehingga dia capai 70%. Alright? Okay. So until this slide, do you have any question? Anything you want to ask regarding this example? Boleh faham tak? Reportable segment. Okay. So Camila, any question Camila? Okay, so Camila don't have any question. So I think everybody pun okay kan? Boleh faham ya? Okay, I proceed with next slide ya. Okay, so disclosure for each segment. So for each segment, for the reportable segment, yeah. So what they need to disclose. So these are all informations that the segment need to disclose. So they have to disclose their tax, other material non-cash items, their profit, total asset and liability, the revenues, interest income expense, their depreciation, profit from associates and joint ventures. Okay, so this, the each segment need to disclose all of this information, yeah, in their financial statement, yeah. Okay, so the following information must be reported for the segment. There is four transactions between segment, yeah. So for transaction between segment, for example, because they have for an entity, maybe they have more than one segment, yeah. So transactions between segment, the basis of accounting need to be disclosed. What accounting basis that they use? Okay, the segment use. So this must be disclosed in their financial statement. And then the nature of differences between the entity results and segment result that may arise due to differences in the measurement of or accounting policies and allocation. Okay, and then the differences between entities asset, liabilities, and segment asset and liabilities. Okay, so this is an example of when between segment, yeah. Example of reconciliations of revenues. Okay, so for example, this is a portion, partial. Okay, partial example. So we have total revenues for reportable segment. Okay, 15 million, and then other revenues. Okay, 500 million, and the eliminations of inter-segment revenues. Deduct 700, and the entity revenues will be 15,500. So this amount will be um, disclosed in financial statement of the parent. Okay. Next is entity-wide disclosure. So all MFIRS compliant entities are to disclose additional information as regards so products and services, revenue from external customers for each product and service or each group of similar product and service. Okay, so they have to disclose. Okay, revenues from external customers. Okay, for each product and services, and then they have to disclose if they have major customer. So if revenue from a single external customer amount 10% or more, that fact has to be disclosed. So meaning that this major customer is a so this is not related party, yeah. Major customer is not related party, but they have to disclose. Okay, if they have one major customer that revenue from a single customer amount 10% or more, so that fact has to be disclosed. And then geographical area. So information as to revenue and non-current asset. For example, the entity located in several locations, yeah. So they have to report that all revenues and asset, non-current asset for from each entity in located in different area. For example, so if an entity has a geographical segment, yeah, so they have to disclose all informations from entity located in different areas. Yeah? For example, the entity that located in Malaysia, how much revenues, okay, and how much non-current asset. For example, in US, so 2,000, okay, from China, from Japan, Singapore, and other countries. Okay, so the entity must disclose all the revenues and non-current asset from their entities located in different locations, in different geographical segment, yeah, in their financial statement. Okay, so that's all for segmental reporting. So segmental reporting is also one of the topic that very interesting, like related party disclosure. So we look at the example, the exercise here. So what is the minimum segment result that should be disclosed? What is the minimum segment result that should be disclosed? Is it operating profit before interest, tax, and head office expenses, or only revenue? Minimum segment result that should be disclosed. Anybody? Anybody want to try to answer this question? Minimum segment. Yan Fong? Yan Fong, can you try? What is the minimum segment result that should be disclosed? Is it only revenue or operating profit before interest, tax, and head office expenses? Or anybody? Zahid? Zahid, can you try, Zahid? Anybody? Ataupun Zamir? Zamir? Cuba Zamir. What is the minimum segment result that should be disclosed? Is it only A or is it B? Okay, Fatihah say B. Okay. Okay, thank you Fatihah for your answer. But the answer is A. At least yang perlu minimum segment result adalah must report their operating profit before interest, tax, and head of expenses. Okay, not only revenue. Okay, so the answer is A. Okay, so next, do all companies need to abide MFIRS A? Yes all or no, just PLC? Akila, can you answer, Akila? Akila? Do all companies need to abide MFIRS A? Yes all or no, just PLC? So what is meaning of PLC is public listed company. Adakah semua company need to follow MFIRS 8? Yes all or just PLC saja? Anybody nak to try? Kiranya Akila tak ada. Can I call Lojani? Lojani, please. Masih tidur ke? Hello? Kamila lah jawab, Kamila, because you are there tadi. Kamila, do all companies need to abide MFIRS 8? Is it yes all or no just PLC? Yes, correct. Bukan B, 2. Okay, Kamila, thank you so much. So, only PLC company need to abide MFIRS 8. Yeah, that is public listed company. Only public listed company need to abide MFIRS 8. Bukan semua. Okay, public listed. Only company that listed in the bursa saham. Okay, so the answer is 2. Thank you, Kamila. Okay, next. The Richard Clark Academy has its HQ in sunny Malta. It also has branches in Ireland and Scotland. Would this latter two be an operating segment if their risks and rewards are pretty much the same as Malta? So, meaning that this company is a geographical segment, yeah, because they located in different locations. Okay, Ireland, in Scotland, in these three apa tu locations, different country, yeah, Scotland, Ireland, and Malta. Okay, so can I call Nurel? Nurel? So the answer is yes or no? Yes, okay. So the answer is yes. Thank you, Nurel. Because info reviewed separate